Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Good morning. Welcome back to Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. If you're returning, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Macy and I'm excited that you're here. So you guys, if you haven't already, if you're an iTunes listener, more like in particular, and you haven't left a written review or 5 stars, please go do that. That helps the algorithm. That helps more people find me. It puts me down on the charts to where the podcast is visible. So if you've been enjoying the podcast and you've not left a written review, I would absolutely appreciate if you did. It means a ton. Also, one other order of business before we get started on today's topic is that I ran a Black Friday deal for one day only back on Black Friday for Becoming Her. And usually Becoming Her is $2,555 for Black Friday. I marked it down to $1,997. Now, I don't usually discount my programs. I've never done that in almost 3 years of my business, simply because I know the value that I bring to the table and what I charge, I believe, is worth it 10 times over without any discounts. But I wanted to do something fun this year because 2020 has been just kind of bleh, I think, for a lot of people. And I decided to offer it. But when I did offer it, I didn't record a podcast that week. So all of my podcast listeners didn't know that I had this Becoming Her special. So I came on here last week, if you didn't listen to last Monday's episode, and let you know that if you reach out to me by December 10th, which is in 3 days, I think now, and you give me the code word, aka avocado, that I will send you the private link to get the discount for Becoming Her. But that ends at the end of the day on December 10th. So if you wait until December 11th, it will no longer be valid. I just want to let you know that. And if you're waiting around for the next discount, there will not be one. So if this has been something that you've desired, make sure you reach out to me ASAP. All right, you guys, we're going to talk about little white lies today. This has been an episode that keeps popping up in my head over and over and over again. And it's like every single time I would think that that's what I was going to talk about on the podcast, there would be another topic that kind of overruled it. But I want to talk about little white lies. And this may not be what you're thinking, but it's still a very important topic. So years ago when I was in coaching, one of my coaches brought up the topic of, do you all tell little lies? And I thought it was interesting that this was the topic that we were coaching on. I think most people wouldn't consider themselves someone who lies a lot or a liar, but that was the whole point of the coaching call. So our personalities are made up of our belief systems, right? And our belief systems are made up of thoughts that we think so many times over and over and over again that it becomes a hardwired belief. Most people, if you ask them, would say, it's not in my personality to lie. I am not a liar, right? So when we use I am before a descriptor of who we are, it really means that we believe that, we believe that that is a part of us. That's probably the hardest part to shift when you're working with a coach, is something that follows an I am statement, because we have a whole lot of not so great ones that don't serve us and very little, amazing ones. Like, I am capable, I am worthy, I am, amazing, I am smart, I am intelligent, I am whatever it is. Most of us have the ones like, as sad as this is, like, I'm fat, I am ugly, I am not worthy, I am this, so after an I am statement comes this descriptor of ourself, and if you're using I am, it means that you believe that to be true, and I am creates your personality. And so what you'll hear a lot of times is I am not a liar, right? I do not lie. And that feels very true. And the reason that this was brought up in coaching years ago is because she wanted to challenge this. Like, because it seems so true that it's not a part of your personality, but she wanted to find the gaps of where you don't show up 100% authentic. Okay, so here's the crazy thing. I think you and I would both probably consider, for the most part, that we're not liars. I'm not a liar. I pride myself on that. I mean, I really do my best to make sure that I'm telling the truth in everything. But as we started unpacking this in coaching, I started realizing that, oh my God, there are definitely little white lies that I tell. And if you're telling even little white lies, what are you being? You're being a liar in that moment, right? That's your state of being. If you're lying, you're being a liar. And it was really interesting because it's usually about very minuscule, tiny things. But we do this because we're afraid of the result if we show up honest. So the way that this looks, for me personally, I can give you some examples of little white lies that I realized that I was telling. Before I would get to my college classes usually started, I think, at like 8 a.m. And so I would get up at, 6:30 in the morning, sometimes 7 if it was a bad day, and I'd get ready as fast as I could and run out the door. And there would be mornings where I had, maybe 10 minutes of a window to get there. I really shouldn't have stopped anywhere. But I would have in my mind, like, I need a Starbucks to survive. I cannot make it through hours of class if I do not stop and get Starbucks. So I would go to Starbucks and I'd be in the line and like waiting patiently to get my coffee and, be thinking in my head, like, if they don't hurry up, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late. I'm stressing out because I usually like to be on time. And I don't like to be late for things. I think I've told you guys in the past, like, that's a part of my manual. I really like to be early. But back when I was in college, I also really liked Starbucks. And so a lot of times, because I would make the decision myself to stop at Starbucks knowing that I didn't have that big of a window, I knew that I was going to make myself late. And I didn't like how that felt when I would walk into the class and everybody is there and the professors are looking at you crazy because they do not respect that you do not respect their time. And so it felt easier to say this little white lie of there was a lot of traffic. There was just so much traffic. You guys, how many times have you caught yourself doing this? You're late because you rolled out of bed late, or you're late because you took longer than normal to get ready, or you're late because you diddle-daddled around the house, or you stopped to get coffee when you actually knew you didn't have the time. But when you get to work and your boss is staring at you, you say something else like, the traffic was horrible today, or there was a wreck on the expressway and it took me forever, or I got stopped by a train. And it's not even true. And yes, you may have experienced traffic. Let's go this way. You may have experienced traffic, but it's not the primary reason that you're late. And so you feel this need to make up this little white lie, which comes down to something very simple. You don't show up authentically because you're afraid of the response. Showing up authentically means being vulnerable, and being vulnerable is something that we as humans find it really hard to do, especially with other people. And so when we are afraid of saying something or doing something that is going to, put us on this pedestal to be judged, which is what vulnerability is, it's showing up authentic as we are in the truth. And when we do that, we are placed in someone else's eyes, right, on this pedestal for them to have a judgment, a thought about it, whatever it is. And when we think that their response isn't going to be what makes us feel comfortable, we lie. We make up little white lies over the tiniest of things. So people do it with time, all the time. Or like, let's say another example. Let's say that you are being approached. So this is a big thing on social media. People on social media sometimes can be so ruthless with popping in someone's inbox and wanting them to buy something from them. Now, I am not an angel. I did this in the past early on when I was first in relationship marketing. And I can tell you that, when you're the person, okay, here's what happened. Years ago, I was the person that would roll my eyes every time someone ended up in my inbox trying to sell me on something or trying to get me on their team for something. I hated it. I hated the feeling. It did not feel good. I thought it was very obnoxious. But then I later found a company that I was really passionate about and loved it. And I started occasionally popping in people's inbox because, one, it's something that you're taught to do, is get out of your comfort zone. And two, it just, it was something like, I actually am really passionate about this and my heart feels like it's coming from a good place. But being out of relationship marketing again, I can feel like when people do this to me, even to this day, it feels icky. I know immediately as soon as I have a message in my inbox, because usually we've never talked before, we've never met before. And so when they come into my inbox, there's this energy that they have, and that they're going to ask you to join them or share the opportunity or, buy a product. And I won't say that it's a bad thing. I've learned, I have enough emotional intelligence to know that the way that it triggers me is mine. And, I don't need to lash out or be mean to them because of that, because they may not know better. But also, here's the thing. We little white lie our way through this too at times, especially if you're a people pleaser. And what this looks like is when someone extends an offer to their product or their opportunity, or they want you to join their team or whatever it is, and you don't want to hurt their feelings. Sometimes we do this thing where we write back and we're like, oh no, I'm just not interested in buying. I just don't have a lot of money. And that might not even be the real reason. Like, maybe you just don't want them in your inbox, or you think that it's rude that they're in your inbox, or you're just not interested in that product. But sometimes we do things where we'll say like, I just don't have the money for it. I'm sorry. Or I just don't like, makeup, but maybe you really do like makeup. You just like going to Ulta or Sephora for your makeup. Like, you like a different brand than what's in an MLM. But we make up these little white lies because we don't want to be seen in our real answer. Like, we don't want the judgment. We don't want to be persuaded. We don't want to be bothered by our mind, maybe being manipulated or trying to be changed for our answer. So that vulnerability of just saying what you believe or what you think is very scary, because that other person has the opportunity to, judge you. Now, the interesting thing is that they have the opportunity to judge you whether you're lying or you're telling the truth. So it's interesting that we make up these little white lies to get ourselves out of things. We say, I don't have the time, when maybe we do have the time. We don't want to make the time. I don't have the money. Maybe we do have the money. We just don't value the thing that's being presented to us. Whatever it is, like, we make up all of these little tiny lies to keep from feeling uncomfortable. And it can even be like, hey girl, do you like my dress? And maybe in your mind, you're like, I really don't like the dress, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to feel the discomfort of telling the truth and then them feeling upset or whatever it is. And so then you're like, I don't know that I would wear it, but it looks good on you. But it's still a lie in the sense that you're not just coming out and speaking the honest truth. Now, when you speak the honest truth, that doesn't mean that you have to be harsh. And the whole point of this episode is even just to recognize when you do this in your life. There is an overall big arching point, by the way, and that is to recognize when you're not showing up in your authenticity. Because every time that you don't show up in your authenticity, you're going to feel it. the more inauthentic you show up, the more disconnected you feel from yourself. Because even though it's a little white lie, it's not a big lie. It's little things that disconnect you from your essence and your truth and where you stand. And it seems like it's no big deal because it's just a little tiny lie, but those little tiny lies add up, and it is what creates confusion about who am I? What do I want? What am I doing in life? And it may not seem like any big deal because in the moment it's tiny enough to where you get out of feeling. It's just tiny enough. You get out of feeling what you would have felt if you would have showed up in your truth. And the reason that I bring this up is because when I learned this, I started recognizing every time I wanted to lie. And I began to realize that every time I wanted to lie, it was just to get out of being uncomfortable and having someone judge me for being in my truth. But I realized that every single time that I wanted to lie, I also felt disconnected from myself because I was trying to be something that I wasn't in order to people please. And so it goes hand in hand with this people pleasing of I need to tell this little tiny lie just to make sure that I keep them happy or content or keep them from questioning me or keep from feeling uncomfortable. And it's very interesting. So the whole purpose of this episode is just for you to start recognizing any time in your life you want to start telling a little white lie here and there and everywhere. It sounded like a Dr. Seuss rhyme. Anytime you find yourself wanting to tell a little white lie, call yourself out, right? Even if you've already said the lie at some point to someone, maybe you say, I just don't have the money for that. And it's not true. It's in your bank account. It's just that you don't value whatever it is that you told them. You don't want to go ice skating, or you don't want to spend it on a TV or whatever it is. I don't have the money for that. No, I have the money for that, but I'd rather use it for yoga. I'd rather use it to invest in myself. I'd rather use it to take my kids somewhere fun. Right? So start recognizing where you tell little white lies. Like, I was late because of traffic. No, you were not late because of traffic. You were late because you stopped at Starbucks. You were late because you stopped at Chick-fil-A for breakfast. You were late because you didn't get up early enough, right? How can you become more and more and more honest? Because when you can align with being more honest, life will feel 10,000 times better, because that means you're living in your authentic truth. And those little white lies are little tiny gears that shift you further and further away from feeling like who you are, from your essence, from exactly who you're meant to be. And you should just get to show up as who you are, no excuses. But a lot of times we don't feel like we can because we're so afraid of what other people are going to think if we tell the truth. So if you're made up of all these little tiny white lies, who are you really, right? You start to becomes a part of your personality. And you don't want that to become a part of your personality. If you're telling little white lies, you're still lying. And if you're lying, you're being a liar in the moment. And so that means a part of your personality is a liar. And I did not like that. I did not like that at all. I don't want to be known as a liar. And so what this is really strengthened for me is noticing every time I'm very uncomfortable with my true answer. And it's allowed me to show up and be more authentic. Like, I considered myself authentic before, but it allows me to be even more authentic now. And really feel good about my answer. So sometimes I'll be in a conversation with good friends and we'll be talking about something and they might say something that they hate. And in the past, I would have just agreed because they don't like it. That's another little white lie, right? Instead of saying, well, I actually disagree and I really like this, or I do this. I wouldn't do that before because I was afraid. I love these people. They're going to judge me. I don't want them to think differently of me with who they think I am, right? The same thing I've told you guys this in the past, but like one time it was a conversation about underwear and they were like, I think it's disgusting when people don't wear underwear. And at first I was like, yeah, that is a little weird, but you guys, sometimes I don't wear underwear. I'm not trying to be gross, but that's the truth. But they had a judgment about it. And I love these people and I didn't want them to judge me for that thing, for not wearing underwear, even though that's kind of the case. And it is the case, right? And so the next time that it got brought up, I was like, well, I don't always wear underwear, not if I'm wearing leggings. And it felt so liberating to just be like, it was something so small, but it's like, oh my gosh, I came back to my true essence. I came back to my truth. I'm always trying to get closer to my truth. So if I do feel the need to lie, or I do catch myself in a little white lie, I get very curious as to why that is. Why did I just lie? Or why do I feel the need to lie right now? And then I access my highest self to just tell the truth. And that feels so much more liberating. And when you're telling more and more truth, you will attract people in your life that tell more and more truth. And it'll be so much nicer to be around, because you know that you're just getting the truth of the people around you. That's what you attract. You don't attract who you desire, you attract who you're being in life. So if people are lying to you all the time, it'd be very curious to ask yourself, where do I lie? Even little white lies, they all count. A lie is still a lie, whether it's tiny and can fit in your tiny back pocket, or, I don't know, in a little tiny pouch, or a big lie. A lie is still a lie, and it still makes up your personality. So just be cognizant of that. And don't beat yourself up for it, but just be aware of it so that you can do better, and we can be better. That's the whole point of this podcast. Do better, be better, become your highest self. All right? So that's today's message. I hope that you enjoy. Don't forget to give me the code word avocado if you're interested in Becoming Her for the Black Friday price. It is done in 3 days. It will not be back. So if you want it, make sure you reach out to me. Bye, guys. Hey girl, did you know there's a place for you to continue this work outside of the podcast? Well, there is, and it's called Becoming Her. This is my online and ongoing coaching container for self-mastery. Everything takes place online and is the best value for your investment if you're wanting to work with me. This is for women that want to create lasting change by learning how to master themselves, their energy, their mindset, and how to do the deep inner work. It's a growing community where you're supported for life, with live online trainings, access to all previously recorded content, and 2 one-on-one coaching calls with me per month. It's an investment where you can rest assured you'll have everything you need at your fingertips, and where there's one primary goal: becoming your highest self. If this has been something you're looking for, join us and be a part of the growth. You can find out more information on MacyRenee.com.